He teaches. He's a principal of Islamic school. There's a very famous Islamic school in Chicago. He used to teach there.
Inshallah, we're going to start our afternoon session. At this moment, everyone who's in the hallway, let's come inside now. Inshallah, we'll start. Give it over to Imam.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inshallah, we're going to continue. Jazakallah khair to everyone for staying with us, that has been able to stay with us, and Jazakallah khair once again to Nida-Ul-Islam and to the board members and to the masjid and to Mufti Saab for inviting me here. It's an honor for me to be with your community here, and may Allah reward you for the khidmah and your hospitality, because that says a lot about the nature of this community. So we're going to shift gears here now, and this next session is quite large, but we have 2 sessions to get through it, and it's called Critical Conversations. And so what I'm going to be covering is a variety of issues, and we'll leave, inshallah, time throughout for question and answer as well. There's a lot of issues that they just didn't fit into neat boxes the way that morality and technology did. So, but this is, inshallah, it'll be worthwhile. I wanted to pick up with the question that we left off at the end from the sister about technology and use of social media. I think it was a great question, and something I failed to mention at the end when thinking about that is, ultimately, given the fact that people have addictive personalities, certain people are attracted and get addicted to, as in they get caught up into the cycle of certain things. There's an amazing book I definitely recommend you read. It's called The Power of Habit, and it's by an author named Charles Duhigg, D-U-H-I-G-G. He's a former New York Times journalist and wrote an amazing book. It came out last year. He actually came to Yale and gave a talk about it. That's how I found out about the book. It's a New York Times best-selling book. It's called The Power of Habit. You can buy it from Amazon or Barnes & Noble, anywhere, $15, $20. What he did is he looked at all of the literature in psychology as well as neurology, and he looked at the brain chemistry and the science behind how we form habits. Like, how do human beings form good habits, good or bad habits? There's people that have a good habit. Every day they get up at 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. and they go running for like 3-4 miles. And they do it every day. It's consistent. They're very careful about their health. They're very careful about what they eat, about their diet. They don't eat too much sugar. They don't eat too many carbs. And they just, what happens is, that's the power of routines. You build up certain habits. You can have bad habits or good habits. And the example he uses is an alcoholic. An alcoholic is someone that has become so accustomed to reaching for alcohol as a drug to solve, to sort of self-medicate, as they say. I have problems, I have emotional pain, I have psychological pain, I'm struggling with something, and I turn to this, and it's going to help me deal with my problems. There's people that turn to other things to, he talks about habits, right? Habits are just patterns of behavior that we do again and again. And when I read this book, I was like, subhanAllah, in a way, if just studying the seerah teaches you the power of habit as evidenced by the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The way that he would fast, the way that he would pray, his fard prayer, his sunnah prayer, his nawafil prayer, his regular habits that he had, the dhikr that he would make, that what we learned from the Sahaba and all of that. The way that people would allocate certain times of their day, here's my time for work, here's my time for myself, here's my time for my family, here's my time for my studies. And so I really recommend the book. It's very powerful in that it just tells you, if you have habits, that if you have a habit that you want to start, there's actually a science behind how you do it, right? I'm not going to get into all that right now. Maybe if someone has a question, I can go into more detail. And if you have a bad habit, how do you break the cycle of bad habit, right? Say someone's a smoker, right? They smoke at certain times, when they're on their break after lunch, when they're feeling stressed, they'll go and they do this. It's a habit. Basically, your body is responding to a need, right? A psychological and physiological need. And so how do you break that habit and change it into a good habit? So that kind of stuff. So the reason I mention all of that, people can have addictive personality. Some people are addicted to food. They turn to food. They're emotional eaters, they're called, right? I'm stressed, I'm sad, I'm nervous, I'm happy, I'm going to turn to food. I'm going to eat sweets, I'm going to eat, I'm going to, do whatever it is that you turn to food for comfort. Some people have addictive habits when it comes to, like, substances, right? We talked about alcohol, drugs, and that kind of stuff. Other people have addictive personalities when it comes to this, when it comes to social media. I'm feeling lonely, I'm feeling, like my voice isn't heard, etc. So I'm going to go online. And this is a way for me to feel better. I'm going to post a status, and it's going to make me feel good about myself, etc., etc. That is a slippery slope when you go down that road. All of that is to say, the reason I bring all this up is, the answer that I gave to the sister's question is that ultimately the most successful way to do this, it has to be self-regulated. You have to tell yourself, I want to stop wasting my time on GChat or Facebook or whatever it is on social media, and you have to think to yourself, how do I want to use my time? What do I want to be doing with this, right? People can tell that to you, people can lecture you about it, people can give you good nasiha about it, but ultimately, unless it's coming from within you, that, I don't want to be wasting my time with this, right? That's when you'll start to see a change. The last thing I'll say about that, inshallah, we'll get into the next session, is something that people deeply need to remember, especially young people. Everything that you post online, you have to know this, everything that you post online is essentially permanent. Whatever arguments, whatever debates, whatever things you post in on your wall, on someone else's wall, once you put it out on Twitter, it's out there in the internet world, right? Somewhere someone is backing that up, whether it's the NSA, whether it's just people who archive the internet. And there's people that do this, right? There's researchers that archive big parts of the internet for their own purposes, etc., etc. It is there. Now, how does this play out in the real world? One is, once you say something, if you say something in an argument to someone else, you can go back and you say, look, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have said this. We had a dispute. I apologize. I want to take it back. Once you put something on Facebook or out there, it's very hard to pull that back. Because a lot of people have seen it, a lot of people have jumped into that conversation, the kind of thing that was best handled face-to-face between two people, and now you have an audience. And you have an audience of hundreds, if not thousands of people that are going to jump in on that, right? That's not a good place to be, that's not a healthy situation to be in, A. B, people post, and I'm saying this is just regular research has showed this, you have to understand when you're applying to colleges, your college can check out your profile. They can Google you, they can see what you put out on your social media, if it's embarrassing, if it's not very flattering information. When you're going to the job market, your employer will go and Google you, they will check out your Facebook profile, they'll see the kind of stuff that you're tweeting, and if it's something that you find that you're embarrassed about or that they find objectionable, you're going to be in potentially some trouble. So I'm saying be very careful of what you put out there. Once you put it out there, it's basically out there. Right? And what you're saying and feeling at 25 should be and is likely different than what you said when you were 15. Now, do you want, like, when you're 15 and you get into these, like, either nonsensical, conversations online with your friends, or into these heated debates about some point that you feel passionate about. For the next 5-10 years, do you want that out there so that when you're applying to college, you're applying to a job, you're applying to graduate school, it's somewhere out there? You have to either spend a lot of time or a lot of money to go clean up that kind of stuff afterward. And there's people that will do that for you. But trust me, it's either time or money. Versus if you're just, you self-regulate. That's a word that unfortunately our society, and I'm being very frank, our society doesn't like to hear anymore. People say, well, I just like to do things the way I like to do things. Okay, khalas. The dunya has consequences. You do things, there'll be consequences in the dunya. You don't care about what you eat, you're going to end up being unhealthy. You'll have health problems. You have to go to the doctor. You're going to have high blood pressure. You're going to have, obesity issues, etc., because you're not being careful of it. For us, in the grand scheme of things, it's all about the akhirah anyway, right? If you're not regulating yourself here in the dunya, then what is that going to have in the akhirah? And if it comes down to it, even in the dunya, in the real world, the workplace here, you're going to say things, people are going to see those. Right? And then you just have to imagine, how does this reflect upon me? So I want us to think about that, of people who feel that they're spending too much time getting sucked into these kinds of debates and discussions online. So now we're going to shift gears and go to this thing that I call critical conversations. And this is a big section, so we're going to break it up. First, I want to talk about these issues of self-worth. And these are important conversations that young people need to hear and that adults need to be having with their children. There's a lot of harmful media images and social constructions today, right? I won't belabor the point, but you just look at the way young people are portrayed in our society, right? It's called the millennial generation. Millennial generation is described in popular discourse as being selfish, as being narcissistic, as being absorbed with the immediate gratification and not looking about long-term growth or long-term benefits. They're the generation that gets very quickly emotional and hyped up about something today, and by tomorrow or the day after they forget about it. There's a notion called hacktivism. Hacktivism is that instead of doing activism and actually caring about a cause and doing something over time and committing yourself to a cause, today it's the ALS bucket challenge and everyone does the bucket challenge, and you feel good about it for like a day, 2 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, and then it's gone. You don't ever think about ALS again, right? What you take any issue it is in the world today, and social media activists have kind of fallen prey to that, whether it's serious things like ALS or Gaza, or even like lesser things. And so that is just the nature of the world that we live in today. What I tell people is be aware of, don't let other people determine your self-worth and value. Don't give someone that power. You are a valuable person and no one can take that away from you. Never put the locus of your self-esteem outside of yourself. It is in your hands, which means what? It's very easy for me to say this. I understand it's very hard to hear it. When you're a teenager, your mind is wrapped up on, what are my friends at school saying about me? What do my friends think about me? People care about what you dress like. People care about what phone you have, what laptop you have, and all of that kind of stuff. It's very challenging. I'm admitting all of that. What I'm saying is we need to be people of high himmah, people of great aspiration and courage. Understand the purpose of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala putting us here. Your self-worth as a mu'min or mu'minah, as a believing man or as a believing woman, you are going to be against the grain. Because the chances are a lot of your peers and people out there of your age group are just, they're not thinking in those terms. They're obsessed with or focused on or fixated on other, what I would say are short-term, nonsensical ideas of what is valuable and what is important, right? We need to be people, if we want to prepare the next generation of leaders, men and women, and I always say men and women, leaders in their respective fields. We need to be people that understand how this society is destroying the self-worth of young people, right? You're all being commodified. You're being made into consumers so that, again, I don't mean to keep, I always say this is again and again and again. I'm not knocking, this, but this represents our consumer society, right? People feel that this is what makes me cool. This is what makes me valuable. The clothes that I wear, the technology that I have, how my image on Facebook, my image on Twitter, etc., etc. And we are so much more than that. We don't need to be people that are just mindless consumers of this. You have to think, what do I want to do with my life? What change do I want to bring about the world? What is my mark? What is my legacy? Now, if you're 15 and you're 18 and you're like, what is this talk? Like, who is this person? What are they talking about? Don't go far. Look into our own history, right? You've heard all the stories. Right? Tariq bin Ziyad at the age of 17 is on the coast of Gibraltar in southern Spain, right? With an army going. I mean, these were people that were men and women of their time. They lived in those societies. They were people of those societies. And the Qasim, Muhammad bin Qasim, the list goes on and on and on, right? You can go throughout Muslim history, even non-Muslim history, right? You can find people. There are people that, like, the society, the popular message was to go one way, and it was an unpopular message to be smarter or more hardworking or to care more deeply about certain issues than other people. But those are the people that at the end of the day, that's who history remembers. History remembers the people that, because of hard work, dedication, commitment, all of these kinds of things, they left a legacy, whether it's in dunya or akhirah, right? Whether it's for dunya or deen. The point is that these are like basic human, kind of characteristics. There's a sunnah to the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the world, right? Is that if you dedicate yourself, so we want people that are very, we have high aspirations of what we want to achieve. Now, only you have the power to make yourself feel better about yourself. If you give someone that power to make you feel good, you are giving them the power to make you feel bad also. If they invite you to their house, you're happy, and if they don't, you're sad. Why should they have that kind of power over you? In your zeal to be liked, to be popular, you are looking to ask them for approval. All the while, and while all of us want to be liked, we have to ask ourselves, at what price? What I'm saying is everybody wants to be liked. That's part of human nature, right? We want people to like us. The question you have to ask yourself is, what's your price? Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu said that your soul is invaluable. It's priceless. Don't sell it for anything except Jannah. Jannah is what your soul deserves, inshallah, if you work hard, right? Don't sell it for this dunya. Be people that think in those terms, right? That's the message that we need to have with our children. Yes, we teach our children, beta, study hard, become a good engineer, become a good lawyer, become a doctor, become this and that. That's great. That's better than what most of their friends' messages are getting out there, right? I'm saying that's here. We want to take it even up a further level. Because if we want to really prepare the next generation, right? It's very challenging. It's very challenging just to send your kids to like college and then to get them to go to a good college and to go to a good med school or a good law school and to get a decent job. We have to do that. I'm just saying this is what we aspire to. We say we want to, while we're producing the next generation of Hufaz and ulama and da'is in this society, we want to produce the next generation of brilliant scientists, the next generation of brilliant lawyers, the next generation of public servants that do work for our communities, do work for our society. We want to produce the next generation of innovators, people that go and work in science and technology and computer programming and these things, and they're doing cutting edge work with the opportunities Allah Ta'ala gave them. And the idea is that being liked is important, but at what price? Don't sell yourself short. Now, friendship. We live in a paradoxical world. Relentless connection leads to a new solitude. And I want to spend a minute talking about this. Relentless connection leads to a new solitude. When you're always connecting to people, really at the end of the day, one of the outcomes with that is people feel lonelier. People feel like, I have 1,000 friends on Facebook, but how many real friends do I have? How many friends can I call up in the middle of the night when I have a real problem? And they'll talk to me. If I really need help, they'll come to my aid. They said that friends are you don't want friends that are like clouds. They just kind of pass over, right? They pass through your life. You want, okay, Tika, you have acquaintances like that. You know a lot of people. You have a nice social relationship with them. That's that. But real friendship is someone that you have a meaningful connection with, right? You can talk about your hopes, your dreams, your fears with that kind of person. And they can share that with you as well. This is the kind of person that's going to come through for you when you need it. You know what I mean? And this, we look at no better example than the ukhuwa, the brotherhood and sisterhood of the companions, may Allah be pleased with all of them, of the Sahaba. We ask our imams and our shayukh to tell us stories of these things, and we could be here all night, about what the Sahaba would and the Sahabiyat would do for each other. These are people that loved each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They had deep, meaningful connections to each other. Now we live in a world that I have 1,000 friends, and they're all out there, and they're chatting, and I'm chatting with them. But when I really need something, and I'm suffering in my life, I'm going through an issue, I have some personal pain, I have some depression, I have some issues that I'm struggling with, who's going to really help you? Who's going to help you and come through with you at that time that's going to stand up for you to be there as your rock, right? Now, ideally, we want the parents to be there. But there's some things that children will say, you know, kids will say, look, I can't talk about my parents to this. I need someone else to talk to. That's why we want children to have connection with the elders, right? With the imams, with the shuyukh, with the sheikhas of the community, that they can go to someone for mentorship, for counseling. Yes, of course, there's something you don't say to your father or your mother, but you can say to someone else. One interesting thing that I learned when you study Islamic history amongst many of the mashayikh is many of the mashayikh, their children would not be their students, to be their shagird or their murid. They would say, go to get a different sheikh. Go find a different sheikh to be your mentor, to teach you. Because there's things that the relationship you have with your teacher that you can talk about that maybe you'll be shy, you won't talk about with your parents. And that's part of the way Allah Ta'ala creates this dunya, right? Creates this world. So, okay, your kids aren't talking to you about everything, but do you want to create a society, create a community that your kids have, you know, whether it's an older sibling, older brothers and sisters, cousins, imams, sheikhs or sheikhas in the community, you know, mentors, and that they can come to for this kind of advice in their life. And the reason I mentioned that in as well is, you know, there's also a danger when you have a 15-year-old trying to solve the problems of another 15-year-old. It's not always the best outcome, right? Because some of these issues are serious, and some of these people that are doing, you know, social work, you know, that understand the nature of our communities. We have, like I talked about in the first lecture, we have young people that are battling, you know, mental health issues. We have people that are battling depression. We have people that have, you know, really, they're struggling inside. We have people that are battling substance abuse issues. Maybe they can't talk to their parents. You know, probably they can't talk to their parents. Maybe they can't even talk to their brothers and sisters. But is there someone in the community that they can feel that they can go to that's non-judgmental? I'm not going to say you're a bad person. I'm not going to make fun of you. I'm not going to criticize you. Let me try to help you. Let me listen to what your problems are, and let's work this out together. That's what I mean, is that's a connection. That's a friend kind of position, right? And their best friend might be really good to them, but you know, a 15-year-old's not going to be able to deal with the weightiness of that. So you want to have resources. That's the point. There's a book, there's a really fascinating book. This woman named Shelley Turkle. She used to be at MIT. I think she might still be there. Turkel is, I think, how she spells her name. She wrote a book called Alone Together. I really like the title. It's called Alone Together. And the idea is that we're all alone, but we're together, right? We're all on Facebook. We're all connected in social media, but everyone in their house is really alone. People feel this loneliness. There's study after study that's coming out that's talking about young people feel so alienated, right? They just don't have the resources. They don't have people to talk to. And I mean, subhanAllah, look at our history. We had history where you could have young people could go and sit in the majalis of the elders and could ask them questions and talk to them, get advice from them, you know, connect with them. You know, we're losing that as a society, as a community here. We want to try to maintain that. The next is emotional dislocation. The illusion of companionship without demands of intimacy. What does that mean? The illusion of companionship means I have lots of friends. A lot of people want to hang out with me. They're nice to me. We go out to the movies. We go out to froyo. We go out to hang out on Friday night, all of this. Okay, they're your companionships. But the demands of intimacy are, I really need to talk to you about a personal problem. And people say, look, I don't have time. I'm busy. Don't talk to me about your problems. Okay? Go over there, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm busy with my own issues. That is what I mean by the demand of intimacy, is that when you have someone that really, okay, sit down, let's talk. Maybe 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. This person is pouring their heart out at you. You know, they're telling you all this is what's going on in them. You know, and there's some people that are like, you're talking and they're just looking at their phone. They're not even listening to you. This is what I mean is the illusion of companionship without the demands of intimacy. This is what also a lot of young people are suffering from, is that they need that connection. Ideally, at some level, the parents should be giving that to the kids. But, you know, we know kids can't always talk to their parents. So there should be someone that they can find that from. Friendship is not a necessity. The right friendship is. You don't have to have a lot of friends. You have to have the right friends. It's not about quantity. It's not that I'm the most popular kid in my school, I have 100 friends, 200 friends. It's no, I have 3 friends, and these people are pakka. These people are solid. These are real people. They're real friends. That is enough. It's the quality, not the quantity of people. This is what we need young people to understand. Maybe it's only you and, you know, one other guy or one other girl. Maybe it's you and 1 or 2 other people, and that's it. But you know, when you're together, you're tight. That ukhuwa is there. That's what they call rafiq. Rafiq in Arabic means a comrade, someone that's with you. You're on a journey together, and we're going through this together. That's what you need, right? You don't need like everyone in the whole school to be your best friend and to think you're great and wonderful, etc., etc. Because you know why? Really, what happens? These people, they're not like that. They're going to say like, yeah, we're really cool, we're really chill, etc., etc. Chances are they're not really like that as well. That's the danger of over-socialization. When you socialize too much, You know what I mean? When you're always just going out, going out, going out. You know, there's some people, I mean, socialization is good because you don't want someone that just, bachara, they're sitting home all day, they're alone, they don't have any friends. Because when you're young, you need to have people of your own age as well, right? One is not socializing at all. The other is when you're socializing too much. Are you studying? No, I'm always out with my friends. Are you getting your work done? No, I'm sorry, I have this event, I have that event. I have to go to do this for college in my group and that group and this group. We're throwing a birthday party for this person. I'm taking a trip. We're going out to do this and that. Like, okay, you know, everything is balanced. Everything has to be balanced. You have to say there's a time you have to focus in your studies. And this point that I'll make, I was mentioning this to a brother earlier today. The way that we understand Allah Ta'ala created our life, when you're young, Allah Ta'ala gives you energy. He gives you passion. He gives you strength. He gives you the ability. You know, when you're young, you can sleep maybe only 3-4 hours a night, and you can keep working and studying and doing whatever. When you're old, then, you know, you need 6-7 hours, right? You need your sleep because you get tired. Your body can't respond. When you're young, you have this energy. That energy needs to be channeled in the right direction. That energy needs to, you have to understand, when you're 15, when you're 18, when you're 20, when you're 22, you need to focus on your studies. That is the time of your life. You need to like absorb as much information as you can. Right? This is why they say all of the tulab, that when they're young, their brain, their mind can absorb, you know, when they're memorizing, they're studying, you do it at a young age so they can absorb this. So when they're older, now you can understand how to apply this knowledge. This is a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A man follows the religion of his friend, so each one should consider whom he makes his friend. This is there's so much hikmah, so much beautiful hikmah in that. We need to teach our children, be careful who you are friends with. Right? And parents should be able to have the relationship with their children where they say, look, beta, this is not good. I don't like this person. I see them. I see the way they talk. I see the way they act. I see their personality. I'm saying that I think this person is not a good friend for you. This person, the way they're, you know, they're jealous and they do backbiting and they're spoiled and they do this and they do that. And as children, you need to listen to your parents, that your parents are smart. MashaAllah, they have life experience. They see and care about what's best for you. Right? That it takes maturity for both the parents and the children to understand that. Now, it should be based on good things, right? The parents should say, oh, we're Punjabi and they're not Punjabi, so we don't want you to be their friends. No, that's like nonsense, right? We don't get into that, right? I mean, if this is a good person, they have good akhlaq, they have good tarbiyah, fine, I want you to be their friend. Alhamdulillah, you should be good friends with people that have good tarbiyah, good akhlaq, right? You know, don't get into the politics of back home, like we're from this, you know, Zat and they're from that Zat and we don't mix with these people and etc. etc. That's not for this society. Okay? I mean, seriously, if there's a person, they have good akhlaq. Okay? And I'm going to be frankly, because I'm on the board of my children's school, and there's non-Muslims in this school, and I see, you know, there's some parents, the way they're raising their kids. I mean, it even hurts me to say this, but you know, we have to be real. Just the basic decency and honesty and the akhlaq that I see some of these non-Muslim kids having, it's better than some Muslim kids. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, whatever their parents are teaching them, even there's no deen. They're not teaching them, oh, this is because our religion says it. They're just teaching basic human decency, basic human morals and virtues. You don't lie. You don't make fun of people. You don't cheat. You don't like, put other people down. Right? When someone gives you something, you say thank you. When you want something from someone, you say please. These are basic. I mean, this is all in our deen. You know what I mean? And there's other people that are teaching their kids. I say, oh, good, you know, these parents, they're doing this kid's tarbiyah. Even if it's in a dunyawi sense, they're doing his tarbiyah in a decent way, right? Find people who reciprocate your love and joy. When you are unhappy, do something joyous with that unhappiness. You know what it feels like to be left out, so make sure no one feels the same way. You know, the idea here is, you know, for some people, they have a natural charisma. They're very outgoing. It's easy for them to make friends. Maybe you have some kids like this. They're very, they're easygoing, they're mature. It's called EQ, emotional intelligence. It's fascinating. I definitely advise people to look it up, the idea of emotional intelligence. You know, one is IQ. One is your, like, at an aqli level, at an intellectual level, right? What's my raw IQ that I can, like, analyze information with and stuff. The other is EQ. Emotional intelligence, and they've done studies on this. There's actually a major professor at Yale. He's published a lot of literature. I met him last year. I went to his lecture called EQ, emotional intelligence. And this is when a student can understand how someone else is feeling. right? My classmate is feeling a little hurt. My classmate is feeling a little lonely. My classmate is feeling a little anxious. My classmate is, going through this. And they go and based on understanding, we saw it's hal and ahwal. Good, like our ulama, our awliya, they understand this. They can be with someone, they can see this person is suffering, this person is going through something. When I read the literature, I said, this is exactly what the ulama and the awliya ikram have. That they can be with someone, they know how to talk to this person. What better example than that is there than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He was with the Sahaba ikram, and he could sense that this person something is bothering him, something is agitating him, and he would talk to them at that level, right? And this is a blessing. Allah Ta'ala gives it to some people, right? The idea of emotional intelligence, and you can actually teach this to people, and you should teach this to your children, right? That there's someone in your class, they seem really shy. They're not, they're not participating. They're not socializing with the rest of the group. And by the way, if any of you are teachers, a good teacher can know, like in a group, in a class, so-and-so Fulan is giving the answer all the time, or this person is giving the answer all the time. But there's one kid in the back, they never talk. So you should wonder, why are they never answering the question? Why are they never raising their hand? Maybe they don't know. Maybe they haven't done the homework. Maybe they feel shy. Maybe they feel anxious they have a social anxiety, they can't sort of express themselves. Maybe there's a sense of being too self-conscious, right? So you go and, privately, you talk to that student, you work with that student, or you make them feel included, and you ask the students a question, and you say, oh, why don't, so-and-so, why don't you tell us what you think? Why don't you come into the conversation as well? That's emotional intelligence. And we need to teach that to our children. It's the idea of empathy. Now, I want to pause here and talk about this, right? Empathy is incredibly important. Right now, if you follow the conversation that teachers are having, right? What's one of the biggest problems in schools? Bullying, right? There's cyberbullying. People online are trashing people's reputations on Facebook and GroupMe and Twitter and all this kind of stuff. They're just ruining people's reputations. And you feel very helpless, right? So-and-so says they lied about you, and they said they did ghibat about you. They said all these bad things online. This day after day, you have to go to school, they give you dirty looks in school, you go home and you go on the computer and they're saying sending these nasty emails about you. That's called cyberbullying, and then actual bullying in real life. Because our society is falling apart at some level, right? This is what's happening now. I mean, when I was young, there was bullying, but it wasn't like what's going on now. May Allah protect us. May Allah protect our children. Part of empathy means I understand how the other person feels and I understand their perspective. If you teach your kids this, they will be able to empathize with someone else. And empathy is critically important. The studies they've done, may Allah protect us. All these school shootings that have happened? About what you've been following in the media. Now, astaghfirullah, every week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, there's another school shooting. California, Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut. 2 years ago it was in Connecticut. Like, this is, what can we do? Sheikh Hamza Yusuf said that maybe this is a sign of the hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ, in which he said one of the signs of Qiyamah is that a time will come when a killer will kill someone, and the killer won't understand why he killed him, and the one killed won't understand why he was killed. Like, just complete madness. Just things are so out of control and just complete madness. Now, some of these kids, they go up and they shoot up schools, they don't even understand why they did it. You watch the interview, the psychologist, the news interview with the people, and people say, we don't know what was wrong with him. Like, he had no affect. He didn't feel. He just went and stabbed people or killed or shot people and this and that. It's very scary at one level. Now, what is the one thing that they find throughout all of these? All of the killers, when you do their profiles, all of these child attackers, they have no empathy. They don't care about other people. They don't care about how am I making people feel? So-and-so is getting picked on, so-and-so is getting bullied. They don't care. Like, there's no affect there. And that's a very dangerous thing. We need to teach our kids to have that level of empathy. Because who are the mu'mineen and mu'minat? They're the people that look out for people, right? The masakin and fuqara. The people that society says, we don't care about you. Our, awliya ikram, they went out and cared for these people. They looked after these people, right? The salihin were like, take care of these people, look after the needs of these people. And you look at the whole lives of the Sahaba Ikram and the Salaf al-Salihin, this is what it was about. Do people get what I'm saying with that? We need to train our children, because why? We live in a society that's nafsi, nafsi, nafsi. I only care about myself. I care about what clothes I wear. I care about what kind of gadgets I have. I care about what kind of house I live in. I care what kind of job my dad has. I care about what college I go to. I don't care about anyone else. I don't care about my society and the society that's falling apart, that drugs are a problem in my society. I don't care the fact that the crime rate is going up in my neighborhood, right? I don't care about all the issues that are going on in our society, about what's going on in Ferguson, with the riots that happened and all of that. This has to affect us, right? I mean, we need to understand, we need to teach our children that, look at the lives of the Salihin of the past. They would go into a place and they would do whatever they could to uplift that society. We need to be people that we teach our children that we're here. We need to uplift the general American public, general American society, right? Now, lifelong learning. Never close yourself off to advice and direction. We always need direction and inspiration. There are plenty of good sources, moral, ethical, spiritual, but nothing can replace a parent. If a child thinks he knows a lot about a topic, try to find out something that he does not know and you can share with him. The object is not to humiliate him. The reason is to show him that you are interested in his interests and to impress upon him that one should not stop learning. The idea is we want to create lifelong learners, right? People that they have shauq, they have this passion, they want to keep learning. There's some kids, like you take them to the library. I mean, this is the advantage of why you take your kids to the library and don't just sit them in front of a computer, right? You go to the library and you just, for an hour, walk around the library. Go to the book stacks. Whatever field, you want to go to geology, you want to go to astronomy, you want to go to history, you want to go to whatever subject, just go and sit down, pull out a book and read it, right? I mean, this stuff sounds like, oh, it's all old-fashioned, but there's people that do this with their children. And when you do this with your children, they have shauq, they want to learn, right? They read and they read and read. Studies have shown the more you read at a young age, basically the smarter you're going to be in the rest of your life. The more money you're going to make, the better job you're going to have, the more interesting of a person you're going to be. Like, you name it, and it's basically almost across the board, you're going to have net positive results, right? They did a study, I was listening to this on NPR. There was an interview they did with an author. I forget the name of the book and the author, but it was a study. The author of the study had this, and they said they took different groups of people, and they looked at people that are in, based on their home environments. If you're in a home environment that your parents aren't challenging you with vocabulary, right? Verbally, it's very quiet. Kids don't talk to their parents. They don't talk to elders, people that are more verbally developed than they are, or they're not reading. You don't have magazines and newspapers and books in your house. They said that they tested these kids. I forget the exact specifics, but they tested them at certain marks, certain points, right? Milestone moments in their, at 2 years of age, at 4 years of age, at 8 years, at 10 years, etc. And then they looked at kids whose parents were very verbal, very vocal, right? There was a lot of conversation in the house. Parents were talking to their kids. Parents would invite people over and have conversations, and the kids would witness it or be part of it. They were taking them to the library. They had more materials in their houses, books and newspapers and things like that to read. The numbers were like this. I'm just going to give you an example. It was like if a child heard that was in the first category, and obviously, you can draw connections here. People that are socioeconomically challenged. They're living in poorer neighborhoods. They come from poorer backgrounds. They don't have the opportunities to have a lot of books and reading materials in their house, right? Their parents maybe have a lesser degree of education, right? Versus parents that are more well-to-do. They're better educated. They have more of these materials in their houses. You see how the categories are breaking down. The first group that doesn't have this exposure to literacy, the child at a certain age learned X number of words, right? X million of words that they were exposed to. The same category, the same group of children, same age, but in the other group, they were like 5X. Like literally, I mean, it was like 2, 3, 4, 5 times as much exposure. Do people get the point that I'm driving home with this? The idea is that when at a young age, when you develop the shauq of learning in your kids, of them reading. Now, obviously, in an ideal world, we all want them to be reading dini books, right? Doing ta'aleem with books of seerah, books of history, and books of Islamic studies and all of that. I mean, that's the goal, that's the ideal, right? But let's just say, realistically, many of us are not at that stage, to be very frank. The point is they need exposure. They need exposure, to sort of challenging writing and reading. They need to be going to the library and reading materials. And in fact, if you ask me, I would say do it across the spectrum. do it in literature, do it in social studies, do it in science and mathematics. Expose your kids to a broad range of things, because what happens is that's going to give them a balanced, academic background, right? Intellectually, they're going to have breadth. It's going to call. They're going to be people that are interested in things. Later on, they can get like focused, right? I really want to study science. I really want to study computer science. I really want to study biology. I really want to study, literature or writing. I really want to study economics or something like that. At a young age, you need to expose them to as much as possible. Now, some kids have shauq. They find one subject and they want to go deep in it. Okay, that's fine. But take them and expose them to many other kinds of subjects as well, for the sake of developing that breadth. Now, instead of overstressing grades, nurture intellectual curiosity, wanting to know. Intellectual condolence can be deadly, both figuratively and literally. Intellectual curiosity is one of the greatest blessings, but boredom is the biggest curse. I'm going to read that again. Intellectual curiosity is one of the greatest blessings, but boredom is the biggest curse. The one thing you don't ever want your kids to say is, I'm bored. I'm bored at school, I'm bored at home, I'm just bored. That is the problem that this creates. Remember in the morning we talked about this? If you're always stimulated by this and you feel that you need to get constant stimulation, that's why kids can't sit down and read for 20 minutes. They can't read for 1 hour, right? When they should be reading for more time than that. We should develop this idea of intellectual curiosity in our children, that they want to read and read and read and learn more about things. People who aren't curious are people who don't hunger for life. They're dulled by lack of interest and lack of appetite. Would anyone choose that dull path when the world has so much to offer? People lose interest in people too, and the results are tragic. Curiosity is the soul of every relationship, and the desire to know is the foundation of every interaction we have in life. Okay, I hope this is resonating with people. This is, that's the purpose of what you should be developing at when you're in college, when you're in high school and in college, right? You should be going in thinking, I want to study all of these kinds. I want to take a class in this and take a class in that. I want to read a book in this, and I want to read a book in that. That means this person, they're mentally, they're alive. They're they're sort of, there's a vitality there. There's an energy there. Later on, you specialize and you go deep into a subject. If your kids are what do you want to do? I don't know. What interests you? I don't know. What kind of, what do you want to go to a science fair? Do you want to go to a book fair? I don't know. That's when we have a problem. Kids are not being challenged, right? And saying to the young people, you don't want to be that person. You want to become the next 15-year-old genius, the next 20-year-old genius. At a young age, start reading as much as you can. What I'm trying to say is the conclusion of this slide, almost nothing has been shown to be as directly correlated with academic success and just general personality development at a young age as reading has been shown to do that. The more you encourage your children to read and just be curious and to want to study the different subjects around the world. Now, obviously, look, we live in an age, Imam Majid, may Allah protect him, said this. We live in an age, information is not, the shortage of information is not the problem. The problem is a lack of transformation. I can literally put an entire library on my phone, right? I can download hundreds and hundreds of books on my phone right now, right? And go anywhere with it. The problem is not that I don't have the information. If the information is sitting there all day, and I'm sitting here playing video games, and I'm playing Halo, or I'm doing whatever, or playing Angry Birds, and that's what all my time is, what's the faida? What's the benefit of me downloading all these books? What's the benefit of in my house, my father or my grandfather has hundreds of books on the bookshelves, and I'm sitting there playing computer games all day, right? There's no talab, there's no shauq, there's no interest there. So the idea is that we, as young people, you need to go seek out these kinds of things. It's not lack of information. We live in America, but Charo, we don't live in the village in the middle of the desert somewhere. Those people, they have an issue when they say we don't have books. They have a right to complain. Oh, we don't have access to information. Those people, they get handout books that the Salvation Army sends them, right? Living in America, it's not that you don't have access to books. For the communities that you and I live in, right? We have public libraries. Now, many of us have access to internet in our houses. The information is there. It's what you do with the information. Now, human education. Children shouldn't run away from adult company and conversation. They should be fascinated to learn from a guest. When you no longer find other people interesting, your life becomes diminished, and you are touched by less. If you let this happen to your children, they will begin to live their lives vicariously through the fantasy mediums of movies, television, and video games, and they will lose their connection with people. One thing that we've seen our elders do, you know, there's a benefit that when young people sit in the suhbah of old people, there's so many benefits to that. One is, at a spiritual level, if you're sitting with a buzurg, if you're sitting with an elder, your children they'll benefit from the suhbah of that, right? If they're sitting with people older than them, your friends, as a father or mother, your friends come over, right? Kids, they don't have to be there the whole time. But when younger kids sit with older kids, or older kids teenagers sit with the adults, chances are they're not going to say very much. Even just sitting there listening, you know, that's a benefit. In like a large gathering, there's like 10, 15 people, okay, maybe your kids will stay quiet. But if you have a guest, they come for dinner, right? Your friend comes for dinner, etc., and there's 2 or 3 or 4 people, let your kids ask questions. And you know, I'll tell you something right now that I'm finding. A lot of college kids, people that are 18, 19, 20 years old. I'm not talking about a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old. 18-year-olds, they don't know how to talk to adults. They don't know how to have an actual adult conversation. They can talk about school, as in I'm taking these grades and I want to get into this college, but they can't talk about life. You know, they can't talk about like how to have an adult conversation in many ways, because they're talking about sports, they're talking about like, you know, the new iPhone 6 is coming out, they're talking about whatever kinds of things, but to have an adult conversation, you know, one is like, okay, the affairs of the dunya, people talking about politics, talking about the stock market, talking about like global events. That's one thing. The other is to just talk about life, right? I mean, young people, they're just, unfortunately in this society, there's the age of there's that time that the idea that you just stick with your age group, that's it, right? You don't like kind of branch out. Whereas when you look at the lives of many of our greatest people, they benefited at a young age from being in the company of elders, right? Of sitting with elders. Now, what we teach our kids is when you're sitting in the gathering of adults, you stay quiet. When it's appropriate and it's time for you, then you can talk. And by kids talking with people older with them, you'll see that they actually mature at a faster rate. Because they understand to have a conversation. Someone asks you, an adult asks a child, what are you studying? Right? A kid's like, school. Like, no, what are you studying? Like, tell me what are your subjects you like to ask. When is the last time you saw an adult ask a child, what are your favorite subjects? What's your least favorite subject? What books do you like to read? When was the last time you read, you know, a good book? What kind of things interest you in science? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Those conversations are fascinating. And imagine the people that, like, in our communities, like, what children can benefit from. There's a thing that they do in some schools called oral history projects. It's really, really interesting. An oral history project is, they tell a young person, go find someone in your community and interview them. Go find like an uncle. Go find your grandfather, your grandmother. Go find your neighbor, right? And sit down and say, you know, can I have 1 hour of your time? And let me sit, I'm gonna ask questions, and then I'm gonna interview, and I'm gonna write down the answers. People are fascinating, mashallah, right? Why are they like, kids are obsessed with like Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and this and that, like this whole fantasy world out there. I understand there's like a power to that, right? But you know, you can't find other people in your life that are interesting enough to talk about. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many people in our communities that we can talk about their experiences, what they went through, etc., etc. I'm saying if you're a young person and if you're more interested in like, I want to go, you know, hear about Master Chief and like what's going on in Halo and that universe and what's going on with like Lord of the Rings, than you are in like talking to other, you know, adults in your community, then like there's a disconnect there, right? We need to disconnect from our cell phones, our iPods, and reconnect with humanity. If you are interested in the world around you, there is no waiting, right? They say everybody has a story. You just have to go and find out, start asking questions to find out what the story is. You know what I mean? This is why I think journalists are fascinating people. There's a lot of problem with journalists, right? A lot of times they do a lot of, say, print, you know, misinformation and negative things about Islam. But one of the things about journalists is that they're always interested in hearing people's stories and in telling stories. This is why typically many journalists are very articulate, very interesting people, because they're listening to a lot of stories and then they can tell people stories, they can write them, you know, they're very imaginative, etc., etc. And I mean, I'm going to give you a quick tip right there. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, our community has produced a lot of doctors. It's produced a lot of engineers, a lot of software engineers, right? When was the last time our community really like developed, you know, Muslim writers, Muslim journalists? Someone that was going into the media that, you know, had an effect, the power of language. You know, our ulama taught us that what was one of the unique things about the time of Rasulullah ﷺ is the poets of that time were the journalists of today. The poets were the people that could move entire tribes. They could lift them up and they could bring them down. That's the power of language. That's the power of storytelling, right? The poets of that time, Hassan ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu was the person appointed by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to defend the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam through his poetry and through his, brilliance Allah Ta'ala gave him the tawfiq for. Where are the young Muslims today? Now work is being done, alhamdulillah. I don't mean to say it's not there. There are some really amazing young Muslims. But I'm saying, I want you to think about it. How many pharmacists and doctors do we have? And how many writers and Muslim journalists do we have? You do the math, right? You can see the scale, right? I'm not saying everybody has to give up medicine because we need to keep producing good Muslim doctors, inshallah. But I'm saying also, think about people that go into other fields as well. Go into science and technology, go into writing, go into media, going into social services, going into non-profits, going to these kind of creative subjects as well, right? Now, family time. I've been alluding to this throughout, but I'm going to come back to it again because this really, at the end of the day, this really brings it full circle, this idea of, the relationship between children and parents. Because we are an ummah that's built on the nucleus of the family, right? That's what our deen teaches us, that the first most powerful unit has to be the husband and wife, the mother and father, and the children. And then after that is your extended family, your grandparents, your uncles and aunts, right? After that, you go to the next level, your neighbors, right? From your neighbors, you go to your community. From your community, you go to your society. People see what I'm saying? It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The core of it is what? Parents and their children. That is the nucleus. That's the building block, right? If the center is weak, everything else around it will be weak. So our teaching that our ulama have brought us back to again and again is work on the family, work on the family, work on the family, keep the family intact, do everything we can to build up strong families. Strong families means strong communities. Strong communities means strong society. Now, what I say, and I'm saying this, I should ask myself this question every day. Are you a really success in life if the people who mean the most of you think the least of you? Are you really a success in life if the people that mean the most to you, which are your children or your spouse, they think the least of you? The world can think you're a great doctor. You can be a brilliant surgeon. You can be an amazing Wall Street genius. You can be a great scientist, doing cutting edge research and development. You can be a brilliant lawyer. That's good. The dunya is benefiting from you. But if the world thinks the best of you, and the people that mean the most to you, which are your family, they don't care about you, they think the least of you. So-and-so is never home. Right? In our communities, this is typically more often the father than the mother, but this can apply both ways, right? So-and-so is never home. They don't come to my soccer games. So-and-so doesn't come and do their homework, doesn't help me with my homework. So-and-so is not there when it's time to go to bed at night. So-and-so doesn't go to the park. There was a picnic and all the kids, they had their parents with them, but my parent was too busy. They were there doing this, they're doing that, right? All of these things have consequences. You put time into the dunya, you'll get the dunya, right? You run after the dunya, ultimately the dunya is going to run away from you because that's how we understand it, but you'll get a little piece of the dunya. But what am I saying? What I'm saying is that what are you giving up? If our deen puts so much emphasis on the family, and look, trust me, I understand it's hard. My father immigrated from another country. May Allah reward him for all the hard work that he did. He worked so many hours, so hard to build it up, to make it easy for us, for our lives. I know there's people in this community that did the same thing. They built this masjid, they built this community, they built this Islamic center, they built the businesses here, all of that. I understand that now we're the next generation. What are we doing for our children? We have a different time, we live in a different time that they lived in, right? If anything, our kids need us more now. Families must make meaningful time for meaningful interactions and experiences. What they say is, your kids are not going to remember what you bought them. They're not going to remember the fact that you got them like a new iPod Touch or an iPad or whatever. You got them this or you got them that. You bought them new PS4 or something like that. Don't be parents who buy these things for your kids. You can buy them for your kids, you understand? I'm saying don't think that, I'm going to get rid of my guilty feeling by just going to Toys R Us and buying my kids these things. Your kids will not love you, they will not respect you. The older you get, they're going to think is, my Baba, he's never around, but he feels better about himself when he buys me something. And then they're going to get to an age where it's a game to them. They don't care. They're going to use it. They're going to manipulate it, right? What children remember are experiences. Have experiences with your kids. They can be small things like, hey, let's go to the park, let's go to the zoo, let's go out and do something, let's go out and get ice cream together, right? Create a habit. Now, I'm just giving you from my personal experience. You know, I'm going to give you a couple of examples. You know, some people who have to work very hard. You know, I understand the dunya is the dunya, right? Some of our jobs, we have to work 8, 10, 12 hours a day, especially in many cases the father, typically more often than the mother, but not exclusively. What happens is that, you know, I just don't have time for my kids. Well, you know, make time. Maybe you can't come home every day before bedtime. Maybe the way your schedule is really busy, but on a regular basis. I'll give you an example. Once a week, set aside a family time, right? Say once a week, we're going to Saturday mornings, we're just going to go to the park. Saturday mornings, we're just going to go to the library. We're just going to go to the museum. We're just going to go out for ice cream. We're just going to go do something together as a family. And you try to like have that consistent, right? Try to make that a consistent habit. You know, this is part of the small weekly experience that you can have, right? That you can do with your children. And you know, it's about the experience. It's not about, oh, we're not going to like the best place, the best museum, the best park. No, we're just going out and we're having fun, right? That so much as a part of it is at the time you're spending with them. It's what I said in the morning. Mufti Menk, he has this beautiful quote. He goes, I have never regretted the time I have spent with my kids. You will not regret that time. Inshallah, your kids will remember it. They'll say, remember when Baba did this with us? Remember when Mama did this with us? We went to the zoo, we went to the park, we went out for ice cream, and like we had fun, and everyone was in a good mood, and this and that. Yeah, maybe you can't do it every night, but you're doing it. Then have other experiences with your kids. You go on a trip together, right? Now, I mean, alhamdulillah, mashallah, just as an example, there's all these Islamic conferences, right? I'm not saying Islamic conferences are the answer to our problems, because, you know, that's also a limitation if you think you go to Islam once a year and your kids are going to be great Muslims. No. You have to do a lot more other things besides go to Islam every year to get good Muslim kids. Lekin, build like a nice experience with your kids, right? You go on a family vacation. You go visit their grandparents. You go visit uncles and aunties. You know what I mean? You go visit your friends, like their friends, like, you know, you live in New Jersey, you have some family friends that live in New York City, in Queens, and you say, you know what? You know, in 3 weeks we're going to go on a nice day trip. We're all going to go to visit the family together, and you make a plan. When kids have these things to look forward to, especially at a younger age, inshallah, it'll be meaningful. They'll remember that experience. These are just little examples. You can use your imagination to come up with other types of examples, right? You can, you know, I know some families that go to the library or they go to the museum oftentimes, right? I mean, use whatever example it is. I like ice cream a lot, so I use ice cream as an example. I take my kids to ice cream if they're good, and, you know, I have time. We go out, and, you know, just it's a good way to get out and, you know, have fun. But let me tell you on a day-to-day, how often do you eat together as a family dinner? Now think about this. Do you rush through dinner like, oh, eat, because I have to go here and so has to go there? Children will stick around if the conversation is interesting. The biggest determinant is the parent. If you see yourself as a bore, your children will do the same thing. If you don't think you're an interesting person and you don't have anything to talk to your kids about, your kids are going to think, well, my Baba's not a very cool guy to hang out with. He's not interesting. He doesn't have anything to talk about with me. Now, I'm not saying you need to like be up to date with all the latest movies and video games and stuff like that, but I'm saying just talk to people, talk to them about, you know, just life. Discuss humanity with them, human strengths and weaknesses, interpreting motivation, etc., etc. You know what's so fascinating? I was an English major, alhamdulillah, as a undergrad. You know the power when you study literature, every literature across cultures. Literature is about what? It's about stories. Stories are about what? Heroes and villains. There's conflict, right? There's a plot. The world is full of heroes and villains, right? Human strengths and motivation. Look at anywhere in the world today what's going on. Certain people want power. They have hub, right? It's called hubb-e-jah, love for fame, hubb-e-mal, love of wealth. That's like Wall Street, right? I mean, that's like what's going on in the world right now. When your kids are old enough, you talk to them. Why is this going on? Why is the world in the way that it is? Don't think that you're going to like, maybe for younger kids this is too advanced for them, but don't think that like you're talking over your kid's head. If you set the bar here, trust me, your kids are smarter than you give them credit for. They're going to be able to meet you, right? Why are there certain people, you know, when your kids are mature enough, why are there certain people that they make millions and billions of dollars on making bombs and tanks and airplanes? And is it in their interest to keep making bombs and tanks and airplanes and aircraft carriers and selling it to people around the world to perpetuate conflict? Why is it that there's people that make money and keep making money off the interest, And is it in their interest to keep, things in the state of affairs? Like, talk to your kids about the real world. Like, that in itself is a interesting story, right? Or you can just talk to them about, like, just humanity, about what's going on in the world around them. Families who share meals together on a regular basis and make an effort to communicate while they're at it have children who perform better in school, exhibit more self-esteem, and feel as if they are more in control of their lives. This is family time. One of my friends, he said, our teachers, our ulama tell us, of course, don't have a TV in your house, or if you have a TV, be very extremely careful about how you use it. And this is a lesson for all of us, right? Some of us aren't as good about it as others. But okay, fine, if you have a TV and it's, be very careful about limiting screen time. That goes without saying. I would say, like, develop a family game night, right? A family game night is like, there's no TV, there's no iPad, there's no laptop, there's no screen time. We're going to sit together, and we're just going to, like, sit together as a family, right? And then you play board games, you do whatever it is. And the intention there is it's not to waste time. It's that I want to spend good quality time connecting with my family, right? Good. It's all about the niyyah. The niyyah is I'm doing, they say, we have Maulanas here, they can tell us better than I can, is that, there's actions are either fard, mandub, mubah, makruh, or haram, right? There's a spectrum of 5. Any action is one of these 5 things. It's either fard, it's either mandub, it's either mubah, it's either makruh, or it's haram. It's either obligatory, recommended, neutral, detestable, or forbidden, right? You take a mubah action, which is like I'm playing a board game with my, just playing a board game, and the intention is I'm doing this to spend time with my family, right? Then inshallah you've just raised the niyyah, and it comes from mubah into mandub, right, into a recommended action. That's how we need to think of things. That's why for me, when our sheikh told us this, I said, oh, now every time I go for ice cream with my family, inshallah it's a good thing, because I'm making the niyyah. I'm spending good time with my family, right? I'm spending time with my wife, with my kids, etc., etc. Alhamdulillah, it was so nice in Ramadan. There was it's dangerous, man. There's an ice cream place down the street from my house, right? In Ramadan, we told the kids, right? So we said, after we do iftar, before we go to the masjid for Taraweeh, one night a week, we'll go and have ice cream. So, the kids are excited. They're like, oh, alhamdulillah, they had iftar. They're like, oh, Baba, are you ready? Are you ready? I'm like, oh, let me get ready, make my wudu before I go to the masjid. And then you go and, you spend time in beautiful summer nights in Ramadan these days. You're sitting out with your family having ice cream. My father came with us. The kids are sitting with their grandparents. Like, these are the kinds of experiences you want to give your kids, right? Now, this is so much of our tradition. Like, we are people that had this. Why? Because in the Muslim world, we are people that traditionally look, I'm going to give you an example. Look at the way the architecture of Muslim societies was. I studied in Egypt for one summer, and when I was in Egypt, we met a professor there. And he gave us a beautiful tour of Fustat. Fustat is old Cairo, the old city of Cairo. Now, if you go there, it's amazing. This is by Jamiat-ul-Azhar, right? The old part of Cairo. When you walk, and they say Fez is the same way, and I'm sure other Muslim cities are as well. When you walk down the gully, right, walk down the alley, the houses are like, they're not very good looking, they're not very attractive on the outside, right? They're like just wood and stone and concrete and things like that. So it's not very attractive on the outside. Now look, there's a very deep point behind this. But when you go inside, it's beautiful. There's a little garden, they have plants, sometimes there's water, they have like beautiful cushions, there's a drawing room, there's an area for the ladies, there's an area for the men. This is 1,000 years ago. This is how Muslims lived in their houses. Because the idea was you went out into the dunya for work, and then you came back into your house. What is the word for living in Arabic? Sakana. Sakana is related to sakina. Your house is where you wanted sakina. Your house is where you wanted tranquility. So you would go to the marketplace, do your job, and then don't stay into the dunya too long. Come home, be with your family, have fruit, enjoy, I'm just saying literally enjoy the sensual pleasures of the world. Water, gardens, greenery, right? Enjoy this with your family in the private space. And people would only invite their family or very close friends into their private space. We were people that understood the value of family time. Now what's happened? Nobody wants to be at home. Everybody wants to go outside, right? Everyone's like, oh, I want to go to the mall. I want to go to the movie theater. I want to go and hang out with my friends. I want to go do this. I want to go do that, right? They avaragardi in Urdu, right? Everyone wants to go out and do avaragardi all the time. This is like the problem. Ulta, it's gone upside down. Whereas the old days, everyone said, I want to go home, I want to go home, I want to be with my family. Now this is a disease, right? Of like the challenge of the society we live in. We should be people that bring this back, right? Spend time with your family again and again, bring them in. One other interesting thing that Sheikh Hamza Yusuf said, why the houses from the outside were not made to look really extravagant and opulent, but on the inside they were beautiful, is because it would protect people from nazar, right? From bad nazari, from the evil eye. Because what happens is if you display your beauty and wealth to the outside world, there can be hasad. People can get jealous of it, right? If I have like $1 million house and it has like gold chandeliers and like a driveway that's like a mile long and manicured lawns, and people like see how well off I am, that creates this kind of hasad, right? And can create this kind of jealousy. So obviously we live in the communities that we live in, I'm not saying you have to go live in like a shack or somewhere and just to protect yourself, but just be aware of this, is that all of these things, there's a zahir and there's a batin. There's an outer form and there's an inner form. And this is from the teachings of our sulaha, okay? Like I said, this is family time. Don't let interruptions ruin it. It provides togetherness and an important time for conversation. Everyone should be acknowledged and part of the conversation everyone is listening to, whether they want to or not. Now, what does that mean? So I have 3 kids, alhamdulillah, thumma alhamdulillah. One of them is a baby, so he gets a lot of attention. But I have a 10-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl. They both want to talk and they both want my attention, right, when they're at the dinner table. How was your day at school? This one is talking over here, this one is talking over here, and he's saying, no, you be quiet, no, you be quiet, I want to talk. A, it tells me I need to spend more time with my kids, because if they're so starving for my attention, it means I'm not doing enough. That's A. B, I need to be able to say, like teach them, etiquette. Say, okay, beta, you talk first and then you let her talk. Or beti, you talk first and then you wait your turn. After you're done talking, let him talk. This is how you this is how you do tarbiyah of your kids. We unfortunately, and I'm guilty of this as well, we think, I'm going to send my kids to Sunday school and Qari Saab, Hafiz Saab, Molvi Saab, they're going to teach them the Taaleem and they're going to get all the adab and akhlaq they need from Taaleem. That's not how Taaleem happens. That's not how Tarbiyah happens. Tarbiyah happens every day when you make breakfast for your kids, when you play with your kids, when you recite Quran with your kids, when you get your kids ready for bed. That's how you do Tarbiyah. When there's a fight between your kids and you tell them how to work it out, that's you doing their Tarbiyah. We need to understand Tarbiyah is every day, right? It's the little things that add up. It's not like, oh, I'm sending him to Ramadan summer camp in the masjid and Hafiz Saab is going to straighten them out every day. No, bachara, you're making Hafiz Saab's life tough, man. Hafiz Saab, how is he going to you have a problem at home, your kids are disruptive and doing bad things, and they come now you dump the problem on him. You know what I mean? That's not the way it should be. If anything, what should happen is you should build your kids, give them good character, and so when they come to the masjid, now what does Hafiz Saab or what does Imam Saab or what does Molvi Saab do? He polishes it. That's the role. Right? You've done what you can to mold, and now you give it to the sheikh, you give it to the ustad, and they're going to polish it. They're going to smooth around the edges. They take them from here and they take it to the next level. But if you give it to them at this level, how are they going to take that up there? This is what we need to understand, and that's the problem in our school system as well. Across society, parents aren't being parents, and we're all guilty of it at some level. We expect, they're going to be in school for 8 hours a day and they're going to learn. They're going to learn mathematics, they're going to learn science, they're going to learn algebra, they're going to learn social studies, they're going to learn history. That's good. You're not the science teacher or the math teacher or the English teacher. Lekin, don't expect your kids to get tarbiyah there. If anything, you know what's happening? They're learning the wrong things, right? And I'm not criticizing public school versus Islamic school, etc., because I'll be very honest with you, and I'm not saying there are some very good Islamic schools, but there are some Islamic schools, they are just like public schools. The same fitna that's going on in the Islamic school is the same fitna that's going on in the public school. It's just, it looks a little different, that's all, right? So I'm saying we need to just be realistic and aware of that. Now, the last point on this is you can spoil your child, but you can't love them too much. They may not remember all the things you gave them, but they will remember the love you poured into their lives. That is the takeaway for this session. We've been talking for 1 hour. We'll take a few minute break, inshallah, at this point. It's come back, inshallah, at 45. At 3:45, inshallah. You have 10-minute break, and then we'll continue to the next session, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.